President voted. Trustee Martin. Trustee Here.
He is
Here. Here. Here.
approval of the minutes of committee of the whole November 25.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 25, 2025.
All second.
Any discussion on those minutes? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comment, provide 2 minute opportunity for citizens to voice their opinions for committee of the whole. Time to make contact with the committee of the whole. We have a couple on this. Valerie, are you on the list? Yes, you are. Welcome, name and address, please.
10810.
I think we turned on my call.
I can just project really loudly if that would help. It's Erica's working on it. Valerie Lansell, 10847 Mile Road. Good evening, everyone. I'm here today, or this evening, to express my opposition to the proposed Title 14, Chapter 3 subdivision controls. While I understand the desire to update ordinances and things like this, I believe this proposal is premature and potentially harmful to our community. Subdivision controls are not just technical rules. They shape the character of our neighborhoods, determine how infrastructure is funded, and protect our natural resources. Weakening or altering these standards without full understanding of the long-term impacts risks placing additional burden on taxpayers, increasing traffic congestion, and diminishing the quality of life that residents value in Caledonia. Most importantly, our land use plan is currently under review. That plan is the foundation for how we grow responsibly and balance development with preservation. To move forward with subdivision changes before the land use plan is completed undermines the very purpose of that review. It makes no sense to adjust subdivision rules now, only to potentially contradict or undo them once the updated plan is adopted. To pause this ordinance change until the land use plan is finalized. Doing so ensures that any revision to subdivision controls are consistent, thoughtful, and aligned with our community and our long-term vision. Thank you for your time and your commitment to protecting the future of Caledonia.
Ditto, so what you're saying? Jennifer? And Prescott. Good evening.
Prescott Mulch, 7337 Foley Road. Agenda item 7B on tonight's meeting is defined as discussion on potential revisions to Title 14, Chapter 3 subdivision controls. For the rules off the top. Upon closer review, it appears this is rather a big deal disguised with a vague and technical description. This is what we complain about when we complain about lack of transparency. We really need to do a better job if we want to educate the public and solicit their opinions. That's not the goal. It seems like a bit of an unforced error. We had to dig through 30 some odd pages of text to see whether this mattered, and it does. I understand these revisions are early in the process, but we would like to remind you that open space is an asset of Caledonia that we don't wish to ruin. So please tread carefully here. None of us are interested in making Caledonia better for developers. It means making it worse for residents. Thank you.
Anybody else? Good evening.
Yeah.
Name and address, please.
Marcia Bueller, 3690 Bethlehem.
Marcia Bueller, 3695 Newton Road. I just wanted to echo what Valerie and Prescott commented on. I'm in the same boat. And I think that with the recent community involvement and objection to the data center, that you heard a lot of us say what's really important to us is open space, character of Caledonia. And I understand that we're going through this revision of the land use plan. It's required by law that we do that. And I agree that this is premature. We should wait and consider that as part of the process of reviewing the land use plan. But there just doesn't seem to be any real reason to rush forward and rush through with a decision on this particular issue while the larger plan is being reconsidered. So I would just urge you to pause this, table it, take it up at the appropriate time when the full revisions to the land use plan have been suggested, and we're discussing the whole time. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No one will move on. Committee reports. Anybody have a committee report? I'm not going to go anyone. No.
No. Ollie's not here.
Yeah. Discuss new business. A discussion on standing agenda items suggested in place. I put this on here because we're all guilty of just throwing things to the wind and putting them on the committee of the whole agenda. So I'd like to suggest we change the procedure for putting things on this agenda and to be, follow along with me, but so we have an idea about legislative change that we talk about it with one of our friends and we come here with a defined idea and present it properly, but have your friend second it so that it's a motion and a second, and then the whole board can vote on it if we want to work on this or not, maybe lay it over for a while. And that way we get clearer pictures on what we're looking for and really work on things that are important to the entire board. So just a suggestion for now.
So you're saying that you would like to move it to like what's actually done on full board, where it takes 2 trustees to put an item on the agenda? Am I understanding that?
Yeah. Talk it through with your partner so that you have it clear in your mind exactly what we're looking for. Because I think sometimes we come here with ideas that are not completely thought out ideas. And then we task our staff with projects that we don't go through with. Give it a thought, we'll bring it back up. Okay? All right. All right. Okay, so items in future agendas.
Mr. President, just for clarification for the record, is this something that, what I think I heard you say is that for what you would like to do is establish a process for this particular committee operation
Yeah.
at the item that regularly occurs on your agenda that says suggested items to be placed on future meeting agenda, that there be a process in order to get something on the next agenda, the next committee of the whole agenda, where there is did you say a first and a second and a vote by the body, or would it just be a first and a second?
No, vote by the body. Non-committal.
Not on committee of the whole. That's why I said, but that's what I'm saying.
If a majority of the committee want to establish a rule about how you get things on future committee agendas at the meeting, you could decide that here now. You could decide that it is requires a first and a second and a vote, or you could decide it requires just a first and a second and no vote to get placed on the next agenda.
It would come forward. I don't want to talk about this very much more.
Well, right. So if you don't want to decide it now, but you want to talk about it and decide it later, the proper motion would be to postpone the discussion on this item, possible action, to a future meeting date, your next meeting or some other meeting date set out.
Thank you, Elaine. I'll make a motion to postpone this item, this suggestion until our next meeting, then we can discuss and vote.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right, thank you. All right, so then suggested items we place on future meetings. Anybody have anything?
Well, just silly, could we have meetings that don't go till 10 o'clock?
Well, that was easy. All right, continuing business, discussion and review of ordinance, section 258, changing utility district commission members from 7 to 5. I'd like to just comment on this before we move ahead. We changed this, somehow it never got into the ordinance. We did change the membership from 7 to 5 quite a while ago, if you remember correctly. Somehow it never got captured in the ordinance. So can I have a motion to officially change the membership of that committee, that commission?
I'll make that motion.
You recall that?
I think that's.
That's quite a while. Yep. Yeah, we checked all of this, we can't find it ever. Got officially done. I'm sorry, who seconded that? You did? Thank you, Fran. Yeah, pleasure talking about. Okay, so, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, discussion on potential provisions of Title 14, Chapter 3, subdivision controls. This has been here several times in several of the committees. Elaine or Todd, would you like to explain to all of us the differences between the comp plan review and this item Title 14?
Do we need to get a motion on the floor first?
Well, I mean, I can kind of go over my report. And I think Elaine has some things to discuss.
Well, I think you heard the public comment. I think they're mixing two subjects together. And
Right. Well, I mean, the subdivision ordinance is still semi-land use. It would still require a public hearing, partly because it's an ordinance, but I don't know if it necessarily requires the public hearing based on its implications to zoning. And Elaine can touch on that. But do you want me to go through my report?
sure.
No.
Okay. Well, I think before you table it, you should listen to what Elaine has.
Briefly.
Okay, so just to answer that question about the comp plan versus the subdivision ordinance, so your comprehensive plan obviously sets the plan for how land is going to be used in the village. Zoning is in parcel with that and is meant to be consistent with that comp plan when you're making your land use decisions. Your platting ordinance, which is what this document is how if somebody is proposing to divide land into a subdivision, because you have a separate chapter of Title 14 that governs your minor land divisions, and you've actually updated that over the years based on some statutory changes and flexibility that the legislature granted you. But this ordinance hasn't been updated for some time. We did some minor tweaks. I don't remember how many years ago, probably says that in the table of contents. But this is only implicated if somebody's proposing a subdivision. So that's not going to capture all of your land use. It's not going to capture other kinds of proposed rezoning changes because not all comp plan changes or rezoning changes include a subdivision. So this governs subdivision. Under Chapter 236, though, of your Wisconsin statutes, in order to modify this document, you would be required to have a public hearing, and we've done that before when you had updates to Title 14. So right now, there are certain provisions in this particular chapter that are in conflict with Wisconsin law and haven't been updated, in part because there have been policy differences amongst the board members over the years that we've not been able to get over the hurdle to open up the document. So when we last spoke with the board about this, there was some direction to staff, and I know Todd was going to review this, to work on this subdivision code. And so that's what I think he and his staff have been trying to do. So it is a different tool of the village. It's a tool that's authorized under Chapter 236 of the Wisconsin statutes. to govern how subdivisions happen. So that's not all development, it's only development that happens via subdivision plat, which can be residential, it can be for a condominium. It also can be for certain kinds, although it's not regularly used in the commercial setting. So just for clarity, it is different than your comp plan.
I think though, when you say for subdivisions, part of it eliminates what we call country estate lots.
No, that's not my understanding, that there would be an elimination of country estate lots in your zoning code. So your zoning code is gonna govern, the size of lots and often density. There's calculations under this code in terms of how many lots you're gonna get in a particular subdivision, based on the area that's proposed to be divided. And then in your certified survey map, code, your minor land division code, there are some requirements for, individual lots if you're gonna carve off one and what size it would have to be if you're in the unserved areas.
At a disadvantage, right? But we tweak like computer. If I can't a couple of things that I'm looking for. But my understanding, I mean, I looked at it carefully. It said that I think reference was that somehow some land that we had in eventually, well, that would be eliminated.
No, it does not say eliminated.
Uh,
That is in my report, but it does not say that it's going to be eliminated. We're not looking at eliminating any type of lot. If somebody still wanted to do a country estate lot or a country lot, they would be able to, but it just wouldn't necessarily be a requirement. Part of what my report was going over was the idea of the history of the ordinance, which I showed the minute books right here, in case anybody would like to review them. And then the conservation subdivision theory that was done by Randall Arndt, and he came to the village board to discuss this. But I don't have anything in here that says we're going to eliminate country lots. And as a matter of fact, there are numerous entries where it talks about still maintaining the conservation subdivision theory and creating connectivity, recreational and educational spaces, and most importantly, community. Doing that through open space ordinances, LEED certification requirements from neighborhood planning, and resources from the ADA.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that this matter, let me get it right. 7B be laid over until such time as the subcommittee on land use planning is complete. I respect what Elaine has said, understanding the separate placements. There's no way, in my opinion, you can talk about land use planning and not include understanding that subdivisions of residential or housing is a critical part. I make a motion that 7B be laid over until the completion of the planning commission subcommittee on review of the 2050 land use plan is complete. Comprehensive land.
The completion of plan commission subcommittee review of 2050. Comprehensive plan. Okay. Mr. President, may I be heard? Thank you. Just a word of caution for the board is that this ordinance has been in need of update, so we are recommending that the ordinance be reviewed for updates. Secondly, I do think the work on the ordinance could occur in tandem while your other planning process is going on. There are a series of reviews that are going to need to be made as a part of the ordinance. It's not going to happen over days. It's going to take, I think, months for you to review the document. It's very long. So I think I would recommend you begin that work now. The policy decisions that come with this ordinance ultimately rest with the village board. So, but in the interim, while you're working on your comp plan, you could also be working on this ordinance to move that process along. But the policy decisions, again, rest with this board after you have a public hearing. So the village, I don't think, is at risk of making a decision that this board does not want to advance unless you so decide. So I would recommend that you begin working on the ordinance. I don't think that there is a harm in that. Do I think one planning process can inform the other planning process? Sure, but I do think that that can happen in tandem. That's my recommendation.
Well, recognizing that, and also note when I read the cover memo, the direction outlined in it is not direction from the board.
I was just gonna ask for clarification on what trustee, what trustee Pierce just said.
If you look at, I'll show you what page it is, item 16, where we're talking about land trust, which is making, this is urban language. Let's see, we have hickey bikies and tree huggings that, we've got the waiver, we get down to 18, changes that are recommended, are on there. And then you get down to 19, attachment 4, which the, and I see most of this as opinions and direction, which isn't coming from the board. We're not saying we want you to go and look. We have said we would like to look at changing this ordinance in relationship to east of 32. We have talked about that and said we understood that it needed change.
Trustee Pierce, I will remind you that on 1/28/2025, you and I started work on reviewing the entire ordinance. We finished that on 2/10/25. I met with KRLT on this March 11th, 2025. I met with the Conservancy to talk about updates to this code on March 21st, 2025, and I discussed revisions and changes with this with Trustee Wishaw on March 7th. There is a long list of times this item has come to the board and been laid over. It would be my recommendation that we move this, either the committee of the whole reviews this as we go through the process, which I don't think anybody's up for long meetings to discuss this, or send it to the planning.
I think what Elaine suggested is that we look at it. Elaine suggested is that we look at it and that we do that piece of the document. What do you think of this?
I agree. I think it's going to take some time, and I do think that before the committee of the whole puts the brakes on this, that you would benefit from actually hearing from your administrator and walking through some of the historical information and the reasons for some of the recommendations that he has outlined in his memo. I think that that would be helpful. But to your point, Trustee Martin, this is a big ordinance, and you're going to need to take pieces by pieces of it and sections by sections. And you're probably going to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back when you're reviewing it, because things will crystallize and you'll be like, oh, we really need to back up to this concept. It's going to take a while to get through it. And And that's why I'm recommending that you start that process now so that we can move towards that. But ideally, I think that both those planning processes will come together in a way where one informs the other, and ultimately those policy decisions will rest with the village board on whether or not you adopt the amendments to the comp plan and on whether or not you adopt the changes to the subdivision ordinance and in what form.
What I would request, you had indicated that the state law has changed. Make some changes because of that. If we could have an itemized list of that, so that at least we can start with that. Required to make changes, statute that we can do it. Suggestion that we deal with that. I have no idea how extensive that is. I don't know if that can be dealt with in one meeting. But I think that should be the first.
So we, I'm going this way. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did meet back last spring, I remember that. But I don't have any copy of whatever that draft ordinance is. And on page 6 here, this, I'm not being critical, I'm just asking a question. It's a recommended motion that the village board refer the draft of the Title 14, Chapter 3 to Plan Commission for ordinance review and revision to schedule a public hearing. An ordinance and to make a report recommendation to the village board after a public hearing. I would prefer that we get a copy of the draft, which was not included here. And we send it to the committee of the whole for review rather than to the plan commission. So I think if you send it to the plan commission, and in this scenario, then we have a public hearing, and then it comes back to the board. What happens if the board doesn't agree with it? We're kind of starting from scratch because if we make changes to it, it's going to go back to a public hearing again, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
You would have to go back. But
So I would prefer that we get a copy of whatever we came up with last spring. You must have, I don't think I have it. I've got a handwritten notes on it, but I don't know if that was a final revision or not. I think the committee of the whole should go through it. I understand it's going to take some time, but I'm up for it.
We've done that.
I would rather do that and then send it to the plan commission. That would be my opinion.
Well, I agree, because if it goes to the planning commission, they're gonna have the same problem. They're gonna have to go through it. That seems much less effective.
Because this is the committee as a whole, also representing what was the legislative and licensing committee, and this would have been the legislative and licensing only framework. That was brought into the committee as a whole for all of those existing committees to come into here where we would have discussion back and forth, and then move into whatever the appropriate committees for the final legal process would be.
And my other comment on that, I agree with that. In fact, when we switched to committee of the whole, I really wasn't wild about it. We used to have a finance committee that we went over all sorts of things. None of that happens anymore. I understand it takes less time, because we're pushing those decisions off to staff primarily. But I don't think that's correct. I was against it at the time. Too many things now are not being appropriately reviewed, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. We used to do all sorts of things in finance that none of that's happening anymore.
and
That's not a good thing.
I have
Just appreciate you.
I have no issue with
Don't take it
what
that way.
I don't have any issue with what committee or what commission reviews the recommended changes or anything like that. I think parts of what was in our report have been mischaracterized, and I think you'll be surprised when you see what actually is in the revised ordinance. And so we were originally planning on taking that to the 26th of January Plan Commission if this recommendation was followed. I have no issue. We're going through legal review of what the revisions from staff, and that's from the planning department, engineering, utility, everybody has had their crack at it, including some initial conversations with some of the trustees. I would still afford the opportunity for trustees to come have a conversation about where that current revision set is, that would be fine. But we would probably look at bringing it end of January, early February, and then we'd be probably, you know, 6 to 10 meetings, probably where we're going through and discussing section by section.
Do you have a comprehensive, draft of this ordinance that puts everything together that you've heard from everyone?
Not that has been legally reviewed.
It doesn't have to be legal review. It's a draft.
But what would be the point of giving you something that if legal changes that there would be no point in actually providing?
What would be the point of sending it to plan commission? I don't
We,
understand.
by the 26th, legal will be done reviewing it.
Okay,
Okay,
so
fine.
at the 26th, my opinion is that should come to the committee of the whole, and we should start working on it ourselves rather than pushing the plan commission.
Staff has no issue with where it goes.
I mean,
That's for the board to decide, or the committee of the whole to decide. If you want to do it
I'm
here,
willing.
then we can do it here.
I think what Fran's mentioned, what are the state laws that have changed? We haven't been shared, that information hasn't been given yet. I think you would basically, I would call it a red line version, highlight what are the changes within the document that what staffing wants. That may be easy to actually go through. We well understand that we could get through reviewing this document over the 6 or 8 meetings, and when it gets into legal, they may say, no, you can't turn right on purple lights. We can deal with it, but I think it needs, honestly, it needs to come to us first, that's our responsibility.
So we have a motion, Nancy and Fran to withdraw the motion, and let Lee make the motion.
I make a motion to withdraw my.
Call your second. Mr.
Mr.
Winston,
Wishart, make your motion.
All right, I'll make a motion that when we get the comprehensive draft that's been reviewed by legal, sometime. Is that right?
Well, just so the board's aware, we've already started our review and have made edits. So staff has redlined their changes in and have asked us to take a look at it and review those changes for consistency as well as add the legal changes. So we've already started doing that. So what I would propose to you, let us finish that piece, then you get the draft and then you'll have those recommended changes from a legal perspective, and then you can take, section by section and decide from a policy perspective with staff what changes that you want to support to
Okay,
the.
so the motion is that we wait until you do your review, and it comes back to committee of the whole for our review.
Right, which Todd is, we're planning to have that ready by the plan commission meeting in January. We probably could have that ready by your second meeting in January.
I love it, I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.